also some of the cons, as we would say. But without further ado, and since time is of the essence here and we're a little bit behind, it is my honor to present you with Thuraya Triki. She is the director of the technical division in IFAD, hosting this topic, in charge of this topic, and she will be opening the proceedings this morning, afternoon, or evening. So it is my pleasure to give you the floor, Thuraya. I'll leave it back to you.
Thank you very much, Pedro. Excellencies, distinguished representative, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending when you are. And again, apologies for the technological hiccups. I am very pleased to welcome you all to this important event celebrating the International Day of Family Remittances. Your presence here on this June 16th is an indication of collective commitment to foster the development impact of family remittances. Not only individuals, but also entire communities and local economies keep thriving by the positive impact of these flows. 4 years ago, in 2018, the UN General Assembly unanimously endorsed the resolution creating the International Day of Family Remittances. This day, I'm proud of sharing it with you today, was first proclaimed by IFAD Governing Council in 2014, and then brought to the UN General Assembly with a coalition of champion countries for which we have today a large number of representatives. And I would like to use this as an opportunity to thank them for the excellent partnership. Since then, IFAD has been the host of the IDFR celebration and observance, as well as the promoter of its global awareness raising campaign, focused this year on recovery and resilience through digital and financial inclusion. Today, we are gathering virtually to recognize the efforts of 1 billion people on Earth who either send or receive remittances and who collectively form the human face of globalization. Entire families make sacrifices when one or more of their members has to migrate to seek income and job opportunities away from home, particularly during the recent crisis. Actually, I think we should stop counting the number of crises that we've been having over the past 2 years. Migrants continue to sending remittances to their families back home, despite the severe impact of COVID-19 around the world. In 2021, the total remittances to low and middle income countries reached $605 billion and increased by 20% from 2020. I'm particularly pleased to announce today, after 2 years without in-presence events, as mentioned earlier by Pedro, that besides this gathering, we are also celebrating on-site events of the IDFR observers in 4 countries in Africa. In partnership with the central banks and governments of the Gambia, Ghana, Kenya, and South Africa, and with the collaboration of many local stakeholders from the public and the private sector, we'll be discussing about new trends, challenges, and opportunities in the remittances market, both at continental and global levels. This will be an opportunity to highlight the development impact of these flows, particularly in rural areas where they count most. Besides being a lifeline for millions and for entire communities and countries around the world, these $200 average monthly flows per family also promote digital and financial inclusion for migrants' families and contribute to creating new jobs and income generating opportunities. Remittances also offer a concrete avenue for climate adaptation by allowing smallholder farmers and rural people to better anticipate and become resilient to climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, for IFAD and its current financing partners, the European Commission and the governments of Luxembourg, Spain, and Sweden, supporting remittance markets and their contribution to rural development is a priority. For the past 15 years, through our financing facility for remittances, which is hosted by IFAD, in partnership with IFIs and public, private, and civil society organizations, we have been promoting solutions and business models that have benefited millions of remittance families and their communities worldwide. In this regard, Today, we take this opportunity to call upon governments, private sector, and all stakeholders to take concrete action towards the commitment or remittances that are an ongoing priority at local, national, and international level. In particular, we draw your attention to digitalization and the use of mobile technologies for international remittances that have significantly increased during the pandemic. Today, IFAD is launching its new Mobile Remit Africa report, which provides a portrait on the role mobile remittances play in the continent, not only in lowering transfer costs, but also in offering millions of people access to formal financial sector. Through the Platform for Remittances, Investments, and Migrants Entrepreneurship in Africa, the Prime Africa Initiative, we're also currently working to promote digitalization and financial inclusion in 7 African countries. These are Ghana, Kenya, Morocco, Senegal, South Africa, the Gambia, and Uganda. Through 15 projects supported by this initiative, we expect to benefit over 1 million people in partnership with remittance service providers, co-financed by the European Union and the other donors of the facility. Soon, we also plan to adapt and expand IFAD's approach to remittances to Central Asia, where the impact of the Russia-Ukraine conflict is expected to result in a substantial decline of remittances, negatively impacting economic growth and increasing poverty levels and threatening food security in the affected countries, with the rural poor weathering the worst. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, while taking this opportunity to invite everyone to join us today in celebrating the International Day of Family Remittances, it is my honor to welcome key distinguished representatives from the United Nations and the governments of Guatemala, Madagascar, and the Philippines who are with us today. So I wish you a successful deliberation and thank you for your participation. Over to you, Pedro.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Soraya, for those words. I think it sets this very nicely for the issues that we have at stake this year. And I think it's a very good introduction also for the remarks that we have the honor of having this year from the 76th President of the United Nations General Assembly, Abdullah Sahid. That would be followed also from a message from Antonio Vitorino, Director General of IOM and Coordinator of the UN Migration Network. So if technology hasn't failed us, we're going to try now to put this video message on the screen for you.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to join you today in celebrating the International Day of Family Remittances. My sincere appreciation for International Fund for Agricultural Development for organizing this virtual event. Family remittances play a vital and invaluable role in the well-being of millions of families across the world and contribute to the development of their countries and communities. Remittances serve as a lifeline for almost 800 million family members in middle and low-income countries, which receive over $1 trillion every year, which is 3 times the amount of ODA and foreign direct investment combined. Since over 50% of remittances go to rural areas, remittances help support poverty reduction and access to essential services, including healthcare, schooling, and family emergencies. Remittance flows have historically tended to be more stable than capital flows as they increase during economic downturns. This was precisely seen during COVID-19 pandemic, when the world witnessed historic lockdowns. The Progress Declaration adopted at the recently concluded First International Migration Review Forum has reaffirmed the crucial role of remittances, particularly during times of crisis. On this day, I encourage the international community to recommit to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, to work towards streamlining remittance flows by reducing restrictions and transaction costs to less than 3% and supporting migrant workers who contribute not only to their home countries, but also to the host countries in which they live. I thank you.
We would like to thank the 76th President of the United Nations General Assembly for his message. And without further ado, I would like now to bring to you Mr. Antonio Vitorino for his address on this observance today.
Excellencies, distinguished representatives, colleagues, and friends, I'm honored to be speaking to you on this International Day of Family Remittances. Migrant remittances are an essential lifeline for millions of migrant families in low and middle income countries. Last year, migrant workers sent 605 billion back to their families and communities. This year, that figure is expected to grow to 630 billion. Migrants are essential workers that keep economies running, particularly through times of difficulty. Remittance volumes continue to grow through the COVID-19 pandemic and remain the largest international financial flow into most developing countries. Remittances enable migrant families to cover basic needs, reduce their vulnerability, and build resilience during crises such as climate change or conflict. They help families pay for food, education, housing, and health, thereby improving their human capital. Remittance flows also play a catalyst role in the development of local communities. This much is recognized in the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration, and reaffirmed by member states in the Progress Declaration from the recent International Migration Review Forum. Further, while paying for essential items and funding human capital development is arguably the most important function of remittances, studies also show that around 30%, or up to 190 billion, can be leveraged privately for local investment and development purposes. This requires that migrants and their families are digitally included, have access to tailored financial products and services, and are engaged through appropriate channels and platforms. Yet the cost of remittances remains stubbornly high. In 2021, the average cost for a $200 send was over 6%, twice the Sustainable Development Goals target of 3%. Lowering remittance fees by just 2% points will translate into 12 billion of annual savings for international migrants. Promoting the digital inclusion of migrants and facilitating their access to tailored financial products and services can leverage remittances for productive use, encourage migrant savings, and reduce the costs of transferring remittances. On this International Day of Family Remittances, IOM, together with the UN Network on Migration, call upon stakeholders, member states, and international organizations to create the conditions that will facilitate the faster, cheaper, and safer transfer of remittances, and to encourage, as appropriate, opportunities for development-oriented investment by recipients. This, in turn, will empower migrants to become actors for local development. Thank you.
And with this message from Antonio Vitorino, it is my pleasure now to give the floor to also a good colleague, Omar Castañeda, the permanent representative for Guatemala at the United Nations, who will introduce his minister for his remarks. Omar, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Pedro. Good morning. My name is Omar Castañeda. I'm Deputy Permanent Representative of Guatemala to the United Nations. And it has been a pleasure and privilege to work together with the Philippines, with Madagascar, and IFAD for the preparation of this year's celebrations of the International Day of Family Remittances. We hope that the event will strengthen the recognition of the important contribution of migrants to sustainable development. And in that regard, I have the honor of introducing the pre-recorded video of our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Mario Adolfo Búcaro Flores, who has an important message for this year's event. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, and we'll proceed with the message.
Family Remittances. I want to thank I'm honored to speak today, June 16, as we celebrate the International Day of Family Remittances. I want to thank the IFAD and all the stakeholders for their support in marking this important day to recognize the role that migrants and remittances have in the achievement of our national goals and priorities, including Sustainable Development Goals and the global impact for safe, orderly, and regular immigration. The critical role of remittances in the development of the communities of a region is evident in countries like mine, which saw the increase of remittances received of over 30.9% in 21 and representing 7.8% in our gross domestic product. This shows the magnitude of the contribution that family remittances have on the economic growth. But we have an impact in our development and especially in our goals that we also need to be able to promote more actions that incentive more productive and use of these remittances through the investment of programs in financial education, initiatives that could translate in the increase of the community development efforts that we are all seeking. By promoting savings and productive investments and the intention of the initiative project for job creation of our diaspora communities, we can invest in the future that is coming abroad. Another issue that we have been promoting in this temporary worker program is a joint initiative with the Ministry of Labor under which Guatemalan workers can gain employment opportunities abroad. To this mechanism, we can promote our workforce in these new markets abroad, and we are in the demand of new skilled laborers in areas such as agriculture, construction, tourism, among others. Remittances can also contribute to digital and financial inclusion, particularly for the community living in rural areas. But the improvements in the access of digital technologies in financial services is something that we need. We need a strategic partnership with banks, the private sector, and other stakeholders. In the regard of successful global policy around immigration and remittances, we will require a coherent, effective multilateral response to the development of challenges in this field, including the healthcare response and the socioeconomic recovery from COVID-19 pandemic. Finally, we strongly encourage continuing actions to support global efforts and to contribute the well-being of our migrants. Guatemala stands ready to contribute to the discussion on global policy for immigration, including the transfers of remittances. I hope you can visit us here in my beautiful Guatemala soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you for this message, Omar. I don't know if I can proceed with the next deputy permanent representative from Madagascar. It's my pleasure to have you, Vero, and Insoa Andrea Miyachisoa, I believe you will make the address on this day, so I will just give you the floor. If you could unmute your microphone.
Thank you, Pedro. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my delegation is delighted to participate in the celebration of the International Day for Family Remittances. And through this celebration, we pay special tribute to a crucial value, solidarity. 1 out of 7 people in the world today sends or receives money. According to the World Bank, family remittances have shown unbelievable resilience despite the effects of COVID-19 pandemic, with a total of 605 billion in 2021 for middle and low-income countries alone, as it was raised by the Director General of the IOM. More than half of the funds received are intended for households in rural areas and are used to meet basic needs, namely food, expenses related to housing or health. These few statistics reminds us of the importance of remittances by migrant workers to their families in terms of supporting the human essentials in the pursuit of the sustainable development in a broader vision. Moreover, more than 3/4 of people living in rural areas are in situation of poverty and are the most exposed to food insecurity. For low-income countries, these remittances constitute the most important external flows. Remittances sent to family in Madagascar covered around 3.8% of the GDP in 2020. And at the height of the pandemic, the contribution of migrant workers has greatly contributed to the resilience of the country's population while dealing with the unfavorable context imposed by the repercussions of the pandemic, which have particularly increased the difficulties of households. Madagascar is proud to be one of the examples of solidarity and values of mutual aid materialized among many things by family remittances. In view of the post-pandemic recovery, and given that we have 8 years left before 2030, it is essential to support and promote these financial flows, which are so crucial since they are key tools that directly targeted vulnerable communities to reach these goals. These remittances enable households, even at their own scale, to achieve their own SDGs. While being proud to celebrate this International Day, it is important to remember that we can do more and we must do more. Promoting and supporting these remittances will go a long way towards achieving the sustainable goals by 2030. Beyond simple support, these funds sent to family literally save lives and helps families in the most vulnerable communities to cope with food insecurity, meet expenses related to health, education, housing, and even contribute to useful investment in the spirit of entrepreneurship. The COVID-19 pandemic has revealed to us the now crucial nature of digital innovations, the fruit of years of research and development, which must benefit humanity. Above all, it is important to make formal sending channels as attractive and as inexpensive as possible. We need to foster greater social, economic, and financial inclusion and build trust through digitalization. Our partnerships and our public policies as well must be in line with the vision. It is also important to multiply our consultations at multilateral level, not only in relation to this vision, but also in view to reducing digital inequalities, the serious consequences of which have been revealed by the pandemic. The sharing of the best practice and innovations also needs to be encouraged. On this day, we remember to what extent solidarity represents a salutary value. For Madagascar, beyond the simple social contract between migrant workers and families, family remittances perfectly reflect our Fiavanen, which allows Malagasy families to be united and show model of resilience at the heart of ancestral values that reveal their relevance until today. We are proud today that these values have made Madagascar one of the champion countries. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Deputy Permanent Representative, for these remarks. And it is my honor now, for this particular panel to give the floor to one of the champions, Teodoro Locsin, Junior Secretary of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of the Philippines, who will also convey a message. His last address as DFR for the IDFR as Secretary of Foreign Affairs, and here we'll see, and then we will conclude this panel. I would ask for the video launch. Thank you.
Marks the 4th year since the Philippines, along with Guatemala, Madagascar, and Algeria, led the adoption of the landmark UN resolution declaring June 16 as International Day of Family Remittances. We pay tribute every day, but on this day especially so, to the hard work and sacrifices of nearly 200 million migrant workers, including over 11 million Filipinos, who support 800 million family members back home, along with the entire economies of their home countries. In return for their national contributions, they get little or no protection at all. Despite the challenges of the pandemic, global remittances continued to flow. The World Bank reports that global remittances increased from $540 billion in 2020 to $605 billion in 2021. The Philippines was the fourth largest destination for remittances in 2021, taking in an all-time high of $34.9 billion. That's more money than we back here ever contribute to our country. And all of it comes from the sweat on the bondsman's, or more often, the bondswoman's brow. As the world emerges out of the pandemic, expect the flow of remittances to increase. The ripple effects of remittances spreads beyond the immediate households they keep above water to big business, which gobbles up the foreign currencies they generate. It spreads to national economies, and from there, back to the rest of the world. In short, those who individually earn next to nothing collectively give more than those who rolling in dough yet keep complaining. The Philippine government naturally supports our migrant workers by creating a somewhat enabling environment for remittances to flow and grow. There are efforts to improve the financial literacy of our migrant workers so they can make a bit more out of what they sweated and bled to earn abroad. The Digital Payments Transformation Roadmap of the Central Bank seeks to promote financial inclusion by digitizing payments. The bank offers digital financial services for easier and safer fund transfers, bills payments, and applications for loans. But it is my Department of Foreign Affairs that's worked the hardest to promote and protect the welfare of Filipinos overseas through consular services, financial assistance to distressed nationals, and by engaging international partners, preeminently Germany, whose migrant work laws are the most progressive, in streamlining migration governance and upholding migrants' rights. Remittances painfully capture the essence of the Filipino dream, to care for those back home who otherwise would have nothing to live on. They do this in sometimes near nightmare work and living conditions. When Filipinos make the hazardous decision to leave families, to seize opportunities abroad non-existent at home, they do it not for themselves, but for loved ones, for whom they want the decent life that they forgo. Recognizing the saving power of remittances and the expanding availability of better technology and honest best practices, the poor world in renewing its commitment to help the poor with their remittances. I wish you the best. Good luck and goodbye.
And we would like to thank the Secretary of Foreign Affairs for this message. And it is then my honor is to move to the next panel, thanking member states representatives for their messages, for this observance of the IDFR 2022. And it is therefore my honor and pleasure to dig a bit further into what gathers today for this panel discussion on remittance families and the role, particularly of the private sector and the sustainable development goals. But before we go into that, the panel moderated by Leon Isaac which will introduce his panel. It's my great pleasure to introduce Francesco Luciani, who is the head of unit at Migration and Forced Displacement at the Directorate General for International Partnerships of the European Commission. Francesco, thank you so much for being here today, and I will give you the floor.
Pedro, thank you, and it's my pleasure to join you today on behalf of the European Union for the opening of a panel on International Day of Family Remittances organized by IFAD. The European Commission, more specifically the International Partnership Directorate General, to which I belong, has been the first financial supporter of IFAD Finance Facility or Remittances, contributing to its creation in 2007. Since then, we have always partnered with IFAD and other stakeholders to address the multiple challenges facing migrants sending remittances back to their home countries. Globally, 200 million migrant workers send a share of their earnings to help feed, shelter, educate, and support back home the health of their family members in more than 125 developing countries. Remittance flows to developing countries are larger than foreign direct investment and official aid flows. 2022, remittance flows to low and middle income countries are to increase by 4.2% to reach €589 billion. This follows a robust growth registered during 2021, when the remittance flows reached €565 billion. Remittances sent from the migrants working within the European Union specifically and directed towards the developing countries are also of very large scale. They account for the 11% of the total flows received by developing countries. The European Union is the second largest remittances senders after the United States of America. Around 105 million people in developing countries are benefiting from remittances sent from the European Union. In particular, nearly 25% of remittances to the region come from the European Union, making the European Union the largest sending region to Africa. As remittances were starting to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, unfortunately, the war on Ukraine erupted, altering the global landscape for migration and remittances. Remittances to Ukraine are expected to rise by over 20% in 2022. On the other hand, the remittance flows to many Central Asia countries are expected to fall dramatically from -22% in Kyrgyzstan to -33% in Tajikistan. The European Union is closely monitoring the situation and ready to intervene to support migrants in those countries. The European Union, in its multilateral commitments under the Agenda 2030, the European Consensus on Development, and the Global Compact on Migration, is committed to promote cheaper, faster, and more secure remittances, and to enhance the development impact of remittances in their destination. In particular, the European Commission is working to accelerate the digitalization of remittances and investment schemes via formal channels to make remittances a key component of social and economic impacts in developing countries. By meeting the Sustainable Development Goal number 10 on reducing remittances cost to 3% at EU level, migrants in the European Union and their families and friends at home would save an additional $1.5 billion in transactions fees every year. So it's a very important objective, which we are trying to pursue. The decreasing trend of cost for remittances from the EU to developing countries has continued since 2015. The EU achieved a 25% cost reduction thanks to quick digital uptake in the COVID period. The average cost of sending remittances from the European Union to developing countries was 7.78% when the SDGs were approved, and it's now at 5.79%. We have also achieved significant cost reduction, particularly to Africa, -30% of cost, in line with our commitment, La Valletta Declaration and Action Plan. There is an overall international effort to ensure that migrants and diasporas make productive investments out of their remittances in their countries of origin. This is not an easy task. The European Commission is particularly partnering with IFAD and the African Union via the African Institute for Remittances to scale up examples of use of remittances for increased economic and social impact. In partnership with IFAD, very happy and proud to stress that Prime Africa initiative, the European Commission is to support 15 innovative business initiatives in Africa or remittances, promoting digitalization and financial inclusion, benefiting over 1 million people. Remittances flows could even be bigger if taking into account informal channels. The European Commission is committed to have a better measurement of official remittances. The Commission is also actively participating into the World Bank working group on improving remittances statistics by Eurostat and the European Commission Joint Research Center. The European Commission Joint Research Center is today, by the way, releasing a report on how to improve remittances estimates. To conclude, the International Days for Family Remittances is a crucial opportunity to steer the global narrative on remittances to support the building of a consensus. And we are very happy to join you in this general effort. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesco, so much for this these remarks, and I think setting the tone and also the context for Africa. As a lot said, I think during the meeting this morning's in Kenya and others, you know, talk the talk is interesting. Can we walk the walk? What are the actions, concrete actions that could be done? And I think there's great time to get very practical at this. So it is therefore my pleasure is to try to push for the next panel to do just that. And I would like this floor to introduce Leon Isaac. If we can just make sure that the panelists can turn on their videos. Okay, just checking. And Leon Isaac, Chief Executive Officer, Developing Market Associates, or known by all of us as DMA. I think Leon is a reference. The good thing is that we all know sort of each other, so we can update now where we are. And I will give him the honor of presenting his panelists. We have a lot of them today, so I'm also giving him the challenge of extracting as much as possible from all of you in a very short time frame. So without further ado and without wasting more time, Leon, I'll give you the floor for this panel, and I'll meet you again at the end of it for some remarks from member states and the concluding remarks for today. Perfect. You have control.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you very much indeed. Good afternoon, everyone, from where I am, and very happy International Day of Family Remittances to you all. And welcome to this session, as we know, on the role of the private sector in connection with the SDGs. Pedro introduced me, so I won't spend much time except say that you can tell from the colour of my hair that I've been involved in remittances for 30 years now, and I think it's starting to show. It is today my honour to chair this panel session. I do have to say it's the most male-dominated panel session I've seen for a long time, so our apologies for that. We did try and get to a more balanced group, but you'll be pleased to know we have a fantastically knowledgeable and hopefully interesting and controversial group as well. As I think most of you know, achieving the SDGs and the Global Compact for Migration objectives around remittances will take incredible efforts from many, many people. And in particular, I think we see, and we're very familiar with government, policymakers, international organizations, and regulators, but the private sector plays an absolutely crucial role. Ultimately, they're the ones who interact on a very regular basis with those people who send and receive their money. And they're the people who provide the services that are used by a broad cross-section of people. Also, they have things that everybody wants, such as valuable data, and I think we'll hear more about that later on. So in this panel, we really want to get a flavour and a viewpoint from the private sector, particularly what motivates them to work in this area? What are they doing? And as Pedro, you mentioned the word practical. I think this is exactly right. What are you practically doing to improve the marketplace? What challenges are you facing? And finally, we'll probably look at what lessons you'd like to share with anyone. So we have planned to have 2 rounds of questions, so 2 questions for each panelist. I guess we're running a little bit behind, so we'll see how we go. And I'll ask everybody to keep their comments short and sweet. After that, we will have time for interventions and questions and answers. So I would like to suggest that those of you who have questions that you'd like answered or comments to make, to start using the chat or the Q&A facilities in your screens, so that we can get ahead and think about how best to handle that. Our esteemed panel here represents a variety of entities, trade bodies, think tanks, private sector companies offering a variety of services, and policymakers. And there are many topics that we could cover. And if possible, we'll continually link back to digitization and take advantage of the publication this morning of IFAD's new document on mobile remit. A very good read it is too. I had a look at it earlier on today. So I'm going to just introduce you as I invite you to speak, if that's okay, in the interest of saving time. And the first question I'd like to ask each of you is a 2-parter. So the first one is actually just for you to try and give us a flavor of why your organization is interested in sustainable development goals and how important they are to you as a business, trade body or so on. And then secondly, I'm really looking for tangible examples of things that you've done or are doing that can really help to address and improve the impact of remittances on the social and economic development of receiving families. So enough from me, and now let's get going. So I'm delighted to introduce Saad Farouk, I think known to many of you. He's the Director of Public Policy and Advisory on mobile money at the GSMA. And Saad, we're all ears to hear from you. So over to you.
Thank you, Leon. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. So first of all, on behalf of the mobile money industry, I am pleased to endorse International Day of Family Remittances and call upon key stakeholders to continue their essential role in ensuring recovery and building resilience through digital and financial inclusion. We as the GSM mobile money team are renewing our commitment to deliver groundbreaking research and innovative projects to support the accelerated growth of affordable, safer, sustainable, and resilient mobile money services. Now, coming to your question around SDGs, well, the GSMA is a trade association. We represent worldwide mobile communications industry. We do not offer international remittances ourselves, but we work closely with all relevant stakeholders, including our members. Mobile money contributes to 15 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Prominent examples include Goal 1 around no poverty, Goal 2 being zero hunger, Goal 5 gender equality, and Goal 10 being reduced inequality. So from a remittance perspective, our work is focused on SDG 10C, which calls for reducing the cost of remittances to less than 3%. We support the mobile money industry on this goal by encouraging partnerships between different types of service providers. We advocate for more enabling regulatory frameworks, including international remittance licenses and a level playing field to increase access, coverage, and affordability of remittance services. And we also publish knowledge products around best regulatory and commercial practices. Over the years, mobile money has profoundly impacted the remittance sector. Mobile money remittances have become the most affordable method for sending international remittances. The cost for sending $200 in international remittances through mobile money is 3.5%, based on a GSMA report last year, compared to the World Bank's global average of 6.04% for last year. Now, by reducing the costs of international remittances, mobile money is increasing recipient families' disposable income compared to other channels, and allowing extra savings to be invested in the local community and generating economic returns. The majority of mobile money services meet the SDG 10C target. Of the 108 corridors, 65% or 71 corridors had an average remittance cost below 3%. And as a result of this, there has been a significant growth in the uptake of mobile money remittances. In 2021, last year, the mobile money industry processed $16 billion in remittances, which was a 48% increase from the year before. And we're planning to do the survey again and expect that this cost would hopefully be lesser. Do you want me to give you a couple of examples of what we or the industry are doing, or rather wait for the next question?
I think, Saad, we might wait for the next question. We've got a lot to get through. So that was great. Sure. I think you've really sort of whetted our appetite around the importance, or the, let's say, the very strong potential for mobile money. The pricing numbers are really impressive, and I suspect there's more opportunity for those to reduce. And the volumes, a 48% increase last year is pretty impressive. So we're looking forward to that, and hopefully we can discuss more shortly. So Saad, thank you for now, and we will come back. Now I'm going to turn to Barry Cooper, who's technical director at Sendfree, who are a well-known think tank on a whole range of issues. So Barry, if I'm not sure, I can't see you on my screen, yeah, but I assume you're there somewhere.
Yeah, thanks, Leon. Yeah, so Sendfree stands for the Center for Financial Regulation and Inclusion. We are a think tank, but we've kind of morphed into an economic impact agency. Our key aim is to do research and technical assistance from the policy to the technical assistance level down to implementation to get those key insights. We work in payments, inclusive integrity, which is AML CFT area, resilience, digitalization, a number of fields, particularly in primary research and also in secondary research. Our main goal is to get people to live their financial lives on their terms in a way that improves welfare. And particularly for us, remittances is a key one because we can trace and we can understand how this impacts people on the ground, and particularly groups that are vulnerable or that have been excluded out of economies. So that's in a nutshell what we are. And basically, we have partnered with the effort on the Prime Africa initiative in order to look at some interventions, and I can mention those at a later stage. But it's about understanding the initiatives in context and understanding how that context can be utilized in order to manifest the outcomes that we seek. Thanks, Leon.
Sorry, I let the technology down. Thanks, Barry. That was really helpful. We'll come back to you for a bit more on some other stuff shortly. Next, I'm going to move to Dr. Manuel Orosco, I think known to many of you and has been a focal point for any sort of data-related activity on remittances for many years, but he is younger than me, so that's a good sign. Manuel, I know your time is pressed today, particularly as I assume you're in the Americas, so your day's just beginning. So why don't we pass to you to share your initial thoughts with us?
Thank you very much. Only 3 years younger. But I think, look, the main issue why remittances matter within the context of the SDGs is that you can enable opportunities for better economic growth for families of migrants through financial inclusion. Remittances increase disposable income and increase the possibility of having savings. And what we have done at the Inter-American Dialogue for the past 15 years is develop a strategy of financial inclusion through financial advice to remittance recipients. And we have worked with nearly 1 million people in ways that you increase the formalization of savings among remittance recipients, and in turn, you build assets. Those assets built actually have an effect not only in creating wealth in the communities, but also actually in Latin America and the Caribbean, it has an effect also in reducing the intention to migrate. And for many countries, this is a really important issue. So we are instrumentalizing remittance recipients' savings by formalizing them and in turn creating assets. The most important effect is that you develop opportunities in the local economy through better formalized business activities in several places. And I can elaborate more on that, the different experiences, but one of the most important issues we have achieved on this is that we get the buy-in of financial institutions, banking, credit union systems, and microfinance institutions to help formalize financial opportunities for remittance recipients. And we're talking about billions of dollars getting formalized into the system and then in turn reinvest them into the local economy. So the private sector actually becomes a key partner in the process as a way to address many of the challenges of migration itself by leveraging on remittances.
Perfect. Thank you, Manuel. So I think we're already getting lots of different points coming through, but I think the link to financial inclusion and also formalizing remittances and migrant financial behaviors, absolutely critical elements that remittances deliver. Now, I am going to pass on, if I can, to Jacob. Jacob, I think you're there. I don't know if your camera's working and we can see you. Yes, we can. Very good to see you. So Jacob Abouagi, and I'm sure you can pronounce that better for me, who's the group manager of remittances for EcoBank in Ghana. And it'd be great, Jacob, if you can share your viewpoint on how your organization views and is working in respect of the SDGs, but also some specific initiatives you're taking to really help improve the remittances environment for your customers. So over to you. Can you hear Jake? Can anybody hear Jacob? I can't.
Jacob, I think you need to
hello.
unmute your mic.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear.
Okay, great.
Yes, we can.
All right. I first would want to thank you, IFAD and the organizers of this project. I also want to congratulate migrants who are out there working very hard and sacrificing and sending monies to loved ones and families. So EcoBank has a dual mission to build a world-class platform, an African platform to contribute to the economic and the financial development of the continent. This can never be done if we do not, give the financial freedom that is required to enhance the lives of the people of Africa. And so what we look at is the freedom for the customers to be able to stay in control of their daily lives without the worry of, in this case, suspending important personal errands just to be able to commute for remittances. Now, this is what led to the digitalization of our remittances environment. Today, we have our proprietary, remittance product that serves all the 33 countries across the regions of EcoBank. So this enables the customers to be able to reduce the transportation cost. It reduces queue. It enhances the lives of these ones because they have more time to do personal activities. And most importantly, this is also this comes with the cost of less than 3% or maximum up to 3%. Also to enable savings for senders. Now, looking at it, I believe that this enables EcoBank impact SDG 1, SDG 5, 8, 9, 10, of course, about the cost, and then probably talking about SDG 17, where partnerships, across both private sector and public sector, has been undertaken to ensure that we are able to have a greater reach to customers for financial inclusion. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Indeed, Jacob. So I think it sounds like we can see clearly a number of contributors already pointing out about how remittances actually address not just one, but many, many, many of the SDGs. I think that's an important point. Interesting to hear, and perhaps we might learn a bit more about some of your experiences later, Jacob, on your product, which I think obviously links all of your locations, 33 different countries in Africa. And of course, we often don't realize how important intra-Africa transactions are. We tend to think it's the rest of the world sending to Africa, but intra-Africa is really important. So perhaps later we might learn whether you see differences in the behavior of customers between those flows. Now, it's my pleasure to move on to Martin Annandale, who is the Global Head of MTOs at MFS Africa. So happy International Day of Family Remittances to you, Martin. And it would be great perhaps if you could share a little bit about your organization and what it does, because I'm not sure everybody will know, no insult intended, but also how you really help smooth the way in this industry.
Yeah, thanks, Leon. Thanks to IFAD for having me on the panel. I think your last point was basically spot on and a good introduction to what MFS Africa does, amongst many things. But over a decade ago, we started connecting intra-Africa payments via mobile money operators. Today, we operate a few corridors, but in West Africa, for instance, Burkina Faso to Benin is an example, and in East Africa, Kenya to Uganda is another example. And that is sort of where the story started. Our slogan is making borders matter less. And what we try to achieve by saying that is by connecting the whole world into Africa and Africa within itself. And today we are connected to more than 40 countries. We are connected to, if you look at the number of mobile money subscribers in every market, we are able to deliver to more than 320 million mobile subscribers. And we do this for various organizations for all kinds of use cases. The kind of partners we have that work with us are money transfer operators, mobile network operators, obviously, lots of merchants and enterprise businesses, and then also domestic merchants within these African markets who do trade across borders. And then, last but certainly not least, a big focus for us while trying to grow the Pan-African footprint for multiple use cases for senders and receivers is to bring down the cost of remittances. And I will speak a bit more to that point and how we are achieving that in the next question that you'll ask. Thanks, Leon.
Perfect. Thanks, Martin. Now, going to have a slight change of perspective, probably. So, Jacopo, I'm going to come to you now. So, Jacopo Viciani is the program manager for migration at DG INTPA in the European Union. Anyway, Jacopo, great to see you here, and very nice to hear from Francesco earlier. I guess from your view, it would be really helpful for you to sort of outline maybe for the audience what the primary objectives are for the European Commission in trying to help and get involved and support the programs that were outlined earlier. So perhaps I'll just hand to you to begin commenting.
I think you're muted, Jacopo.
Hello. Happy
Yeah.
International Day of Family Remittances to all of you, and thank you very much for inviting me. Yes, we are quite a little bit a different animal in this panel, because at the end we are legally an international organization, and but different from IFAD. Because we are the European Commission, so that is part of the European Union. So somehow we also represent 27 European member states. So, but we are the International Partnership Directorate General, which are basically dealing with the the foreign dimension of the European Commission relation, and mainly with developing countries, but not only. And we have the SDG at the core of our mandate. So the achievement of the SDGs somehow is the frame and the main reason why we do engage on remittances. We have clearly a strategy, a developmental one, which is the European Consensus of Development, focusing on remittances, and with a clear aim to achieve faster, cheaper, and more secure remittances transfer. But we also have our migration and digital priorities of the EU that we try to achieve. So remittances is a crucial element to try to promote social and economic impact. And as Manuel said before, they might reduce the intention to migrate, or somehow to support investment by migrants that are returning. And on the other hand, we have a big goal to achieve, which is digitalization overall strategy, where remittances are a key component of it. But because remittances is not dealt by our directorate only, because we are the International Partnership Directorate, but the EC is the EU is a big sender of remittances. As Francesco said, the second biggest sender to developing countries. So there is another internal directorate general, which is dealing with internal market, which gave a big input both to digitalization and also intra-European competition, which was quite instrumental via 2 directives to reduce internal asymmetries and to increase competition, lowering down the cost between EU with the external market. So overall, what we do as EC, either we produce a piece of legislation that are supposed to harmonize our internal market to promote competition and innovation, bringing down possible monopolistic favorable position by some operator, or as an external arm of the Commission, which is our Directorate General. We do promote some innovative program. We do support Prime with the 15 innovative business solution. We do support the African Institute for Remittances, and we do support data generation on remittances via the World Bank. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much, Jacopo. I think that was a pretty clear list there, and all of those I'd like to talk about in more detail, but we might need another session for some of those anyway. But I think often we look to the EU, from my perspective anyway, as a funder of many of these initiatives, but I think often it does get forgotten how big the volumes of remittances are out of the continent. And I think it'll be absolutely great, because I've heard both you and Francesco talk about your participation in the data side of things going forward. And I think if we could get good data from the EU on the volumes being sent to each corridor, that would really help everyone. So I'm going to come round with another question. I'm very conscious that all of you did a brilliant job of answering in good time, and you may not have said everything you wanted to. So this is a carte blanche to talk for hours, but please feel free to expand on some of the areas that you might have wanted to say but held yourself back. So what I think we're really looking for in particular is some examples of real projects. Some of you I know have them and you can expand, but also if there are 2 or 3 key lessons from all of your combined brain power in remittances that you could share with the audience, perhaps particularly for those who are not so familiar, but have the power to make some changes or to focus in certain directions. I guess this is your opportunity to make that point. So Saad, as you led us off so well, I'd invite you to take the floor again to start us on this piece.
Thank you, Leon. So as I said, we're not a remittance service provider, but our members are, and they're offering the best solution, the digital mobile money account that where permitted, can enable international remittances to be sent and received at a much lower cost than the global average. However, from our perspective, we do support the industry by sharing best practices to make the remittance value chain safer and more efficient. For instance, we developed the mobile money certification program that enhances the safety element in remittances and strengthens the fight against money laundering, terrorism financing, and fraud. It is also increasing transparency for regulators and law enforcement agencies and increasing consumer protection. So, for example, making the price transparency more, and then providing redress and recourse mechanisms to remittance recipients. In addition, the GSMA has developed a mobile money API specification where one of the use cases is remittances. The international transfer mobile money API is allowing financial service providers to perform cross-border mobile money transfers more efficiently. More generally speaking, remittances terminating in a mobile wallet mean that the recipient is becoming financially and digitally included. These remittances are also becoming a store of value that is often being invested in agriculture, education, health, water, and pay-as-you-go utilities. We have seen onward investments in government bonds and even housing. So taken together, these diversified mobile money use cases are facilitating local job creation and economic growth that contributes towards achieving the SDGs at an individual and national level. Specific to SDGs, if you look at the second one around zero hunger, during the cocoa harvest season in West Africa, flows of international remittances to Orange mobile money accounts increase in frequency and size. Receiving households are increasing their access to food, which improves nutrition, particularly among children and the elderly. In Burkina Faso, many migrant workers are using Orange mobile money accounts to repatriate their funds from Cote d'Ivoire or Mali to make investments such as buying a house. This relates to SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. More broadly around SDG 17 on partnerships. In Kenya, recipients can use their mobile money accounts to buy government bonds using different services and invest in their local economy. I would also like to quickly refer to another example by the MIT, not very new, but between 2008 and 2016, access to mobile money services increased daily per capita consumption levels of 2% of Kenyan households, lifting them out of extreme poverty. There is also an interesting gender effect. Female-headed households saw far greater increases in consumption than male-headed households. And mobile money services have helped an estimated 185,000 Kenyan women move from farming to other types of businesses. These are some examples to highlight mobile money's critical role in improving individual social and economic lives. Coming over to 2 or 3 examples of lessons learned, I think, even though regulations permit a risk-based approach to due diligence, there were ambiguities around the usage of eKYC and digital ID in remittances. So we worked, as an industry, we worked very closely with the Financial Action Task Force, and thankfully to them, they included digital ID in their recommendation 10, which obviously is playing an important role. At the same time, there are outstanding matters that need attention. Our 2021 adoption survey found that more than 40% of mobile money providers still do not offer international remittances to their customers. This includes 30% of respondents from sub-Saharan Africa, where actually the cost of sending mobile money remittances is by far the highest at around 8% on average. One of the reasons is restrictive licensing regimes, unlike the UK, where e-money issuers are permitted to offer international remittances. Mobile money frameworks do not allow or permit international remittances, and a separate licensing framework needs to be applied for, which is a pain, to be honest. It can take anywhere between 6 months to a couple of years to get an INT license in certain parts of Africa. So stakeholders need to work closely together. And lastly, the issue that we all know and we've spoken about, de-risking. Correspondent banking de-risking has been repeatedly highlighted as a principal contributor to the slow growth in reducing costs in many corridors. And I think the public and private sector needs to find a solution to this. I will stop in the interest of time and give my fellow colleagues a chance to share their own views as well.
Great, thanks, Saad. I think there was a lot in there for me. I think clearly what's coming out is that the mobile solution is not just about reducing costs or bringing efficiency, but it's actually much broader about the link to the whole financial system, and it's a key entry point for people. So thanks very much indeed for that. Barry, I'm going to come back to you now, if that's okay. I know that you've got a number of different angles to take, but one of the key things I think that Saad raised was around this whole area of KYC, knowing your customer, and actually how to manage, in effect, the juxtaposition between the need for people to send money and the need for many governments and regulators to understand absolutely everything about those who do it from an anti-money laundering, counter-terrorism viewpoint. I know you've been doing work in this space, so let me pass to you to maybe share some thoughts there.
Yeah, Leon, as part of the Prime Initiative, we've been looking at 14 institutions across 7 countries, and in order to get to those 14 institutions, we actually had to interview many more. It's probably more than 40, just to understand the modality that they use, and also we also had to scan and understand the regulations in seven different countries. So it gives you like a good idea that yes, the governments are really concerned about the security of the markets, and the security of markets, financial markets or financial systems is really important, because that upholds the whole economy. But at the other hand, you can't secure it and exclude people, because you're undermining the whole value proposition of a secure economy. So what we're doing is we're looking at both the legislation, regulation, how it's applied. We work with the regulators. We understand particularly licensing and other hurdles, and help these remittance service providers to navigate through each of the different mazes. Every country is very different, to help them to get to a position where they're not doing physical customer due diligence or KYC for every single customer every single time they collect a remittance. You don't have to do it in a major town, a major city. How to do this remotely, and what we're finding is some very interesting examples. Like, for instance, digitalization can assist illiterate and more vulnerable groups, because what we found is that in many of the RSPs, they're required to fill out a whole lot of forms and answer questions. And those questions and forms are very difficult for somebody that's illiterate or financially less literate. And what we found is that if you can digitalize that whole process, it's the first step to getting a customer on board. And the sad thing is that a lot of these customers just give up. They get embarrassed, or they take too much time in the queue, and they leave their remittances. They don't collect them. So it's a step about getting the customer into the system. And once they're in the system, the next trick was to create a customer profile, and not just allow them to become almost like a returning customer, brand new every time, but to have a customer profile to understand the risk, and then assist the institutions in their risk management processes. And that way, we're discovering that almost all these customers are extremely low risk. They don't pose much risk to anybody, let alone the financial system. But it's only through a system of quantification and a systemic way of understanding it that we can start bringing the message through that these are not gangsters. These are grandmothers that are collecting a $20 remittance, and and best still, let's find a way that she doesn't have to come in to the nearest town. Let's digitalize, and let's start the process of including those people in more financial services. So that's what we are doing in some of the areas. We're looking for simplified due diligence, and particularly looking at reasons why people are doing enhanced risk assessments when they for $100 or something like that. So, but it's working with the institutions that's giving us a very, very good idea of why institutions are just so hesitant to digitalize. And also the low pace and scope of digitalization tells us that there's so much opportunity out there to increase that for so many people, because what we're finding is that it's almost across the board very, very limited in terms of digitalization, and the benefits of it in the few examples we see are really, really promising, because you can get a lot of people out of this mode of physical documents, physical presence, and just a whole lot of costs. You don't want the costs of the whole due diligence to be more than a remittance, and which in some cases it is. So it's a process, but it's not easy, and I can understand why some of the remittance service providers are very reluctant, particularly with all the fines and that kind of thing that are available. But it's showing a lot of green shoots at this point.
Perfect. Barry, thanks a lot. I know there's a lot of work if you're talking about 14 companies in 7 countries. I think what it is a really good practical example of trying to find a solution rather than just talking about a problem. And I know that you're very good about sharing the results and so on. So all different parts of the world can leverage. You're working in Africa, but different parts of the world can learn from that. And I think that's a really good point. And again, the mention of digitalization keeps coming up, and it will keep coming up probably throughout these answers. So thank you, Barry. Jacob, why don't we come back to you? I did leave you with a question anyway, but there's probably some other things you wanted to tell us. But I'm particularly keen to understand more about intra-Africa remittances as opposed to out of Africa into Africa and your experiences there. But actually, just digitalization, you're one of the first Pan-African banks to digitalize your services and offer that. Perhaps just share some of your experiences and some key learnings that you've had. So over to you.
All right, thank you, Leon. And I would want to quickly indicate here that really Barry and EcoBank, Semfree and EcoBank are doing stuff, together regarding system-generated receipts, risk profiling, customer risk profiling, and creating some database for customers just to reduce service delivery time. And thanks to IFAD for this support that you are giving to us in this regard. Quickly, I want to look at the question that you raised. I would want to say that, yes, EcoBank is first a bank, as the name indicates, but then we realized that we need to definitely put the banking service in the hands of the customer. We couldn't, of course, have been able to achieve this without digitalization. And so, first of all, we had to look at ensuring that the systems are speaking to each other. And so EcoBank has a platform which is centralized and speaks to all the countries at the same time to be able to respond, to be responsive, because definitely customers already in Africa have this phobia about technology sometimes, and would have to allay that fear. And so through that, then various products had to be developed to ensure that we are meeting the customer needs. I'll first talk about our rapid transfer, which is our flagship remittances product, which facilitates the movement of money across the 33 countries. Today, we talk about some 25 other European countries as well to serve the African diaspora community. So what happens is that an app has been built for this product, making the customer being able to transfer funds in the comfort of their homes. And then the beneficiaries are able to receive transactions via wallet, mobile wallet, via accounts. We also have the express point, which is agent of EcoBank. We realized that, okay, if you want to now let the customers own their financial services, then definitely your few bank branches will not be able to serve them. And so what would you do? Let's partner some agents. And so that is what brought about the express point. Okay, this express point today, we can talk about 100,000 locations that are working with EcoBank and are located within their communities. And so these people are able to do cash in, cash out, which facilitates their revenue stream and are able to also do remittances, specifically rapid transfer. Now, we also had to develop this Express account, which is a light KYC account because of the challenge that, in Africa, that customers will have to open account go through. I mean, various documentations here and there, but this is an account that a customer is able to use their mobile number as an alias to own an account and are able to do transfers, all kinds of bank transfers, of course, based on some limits through that account. This Express account is also able to receive or able to send remittances, as it were. Then we can talk about the Express Cash. So you realize that we have Express just to facilitate quick delivery of service. The Express Cash enables tokenization of transfers from accounts, okay, to be withdrawn from ATMs without cards. These are all products that we needed to put in place to ensure that we are able to deliver financial inclusion and are able to reach the customers wherever they are, and the customers are able to do business quickly and as and when they desire to. Yeah, I think I would want to mention a specific project that IFAD and the EU are sponsoring, EcoBank to actually use the various assets that I have mentioned to deliver, financial inclusion. So this has a goal of enhancing the financial resilience and economic empowerment of remittance families through cost-effective digital channeling of remittances flows and financial inclusion innovation. Now, the project speaks to contribute to the reduction of costs using the rapid transfer. As I mentioned earlier on, the rapid transfer has a maximum of 3% fee to the sender. It also accelerates the use of digital channels like the wallets, like the Express accounts that I've mentioned. Customers are also able to receive their transfers.
Sorry, it's Leon here. Just going to ask you to try and wrap up, please, in the interest of time. Thanks, Scott.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so in short, the Rapid Transfer International is going to facilitate movement of transfers in this project from Europe, mainly Germany and Holland into Ghana, and the transfers will be moved into these digital channels to enhance financial inclusion, as I've said. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. I know it's always difficult, there's so much to say and so little time to say. But I think what's really important with what you're doing is you're covering both ends of the transaction with a digital solution under your control, which I think is a real model for others to adopt in the future. So thank you for that, Jacob. Martin, if I can come back to you, please. It was very interesting what you were telling us about MFS earlier, but I know you were just getting going. So why don't you share a couple of key points and maybe some things, 2 or 3 key messages for the audience. So back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Leon. I'm going to sort of skip my notes and actually touch on what Barry and what Todd was speaking about, because that's sort of essentially where they come in to help us, but also where what we've been trying to do from our own sort of private sector point of view. And that is, Saad mentioned that 40% of mobile money operators are not actually receiving international money transfers today. And Barry mentioned that, these people who are receiving $20 transactions are not a high risk. And we've been visiting central banks around the continent of Africa to explain this, to show them best, sort of best practices, how we've done it well within Kenya and Tanzania, et cetera, et cetera. For instance, we are busy speaking to the Central Bank of Swaziland or Eswatini currently about exactly this, and we're making very good progress. So before I get to sort of the 3 lessons learned, I'll maybe speak about 4 key areas where we focus our attention and our efforts on as MFS Africa. So it's cost, it's reach, it's time of transaction, and then investment. So firstly, cost. We operate a single API integration. And what that means is if you start a company tomorrow and you are going to charge your customers 2% total cost of remittance, you would want to send it to over 40 countries in Africa or as many as possible. You do one piece of technology work into our network. And with that, you are able to scale faster at a lot more cost effectivity. Then secondly, the reach. We've, like I've already mentioned a few times, we've got a Pan-African footprint where we even deliver to, into hard to reach countries. We don't focus on just the 5 top remittance corridors. Thirdly, we deliver in real time. So a transaction takes anywhere from a second to a few minutes. And what this actually helps the diaspora to do is not only plan well in advance and go and do shopping around who's the best prices and the most reliable service. It's actually for those emergency cases where they need to get money over to their relatives now who might be in hospital or who needs to pay school fees, and they can actually do that in real time, anytime, 24/7, 365. And then the fourth part where we focus our attention and our efforts is in the investment side. So we've done a bit of shopping recently in the last 2 years where we've been investing and acquiring African startups where we see a good fit for our network with their products and services, and where that could expand use cases for and not just use cases but the network of that use case for people all around the world, not just in Africa but mostly focused within Africa. And then I think to just quickly wrap up, 3 key learnings that we've learned at MFS Africa is number one, you need stamina to grow a footprint. It's not easy. We've been doing this for over a decade, and we still have a few more countries to go. Trust is more important than cost. It is something we've learned. It is very fine balance between those two. But a quality of service, for a sender to know that the money will arrive at his mom or dad, is much more important than cost. Given the situation, right, an emergency trust would go a lot further. The African market is very dynamic and it's fast changing. You need to stick up, or you need to, join the race and be able to be very agile when it comes to, working with the regulators, changing your technology quick to accompany that of the mobile money operators. And then market dynamics keep changing, and you need to adjust your company and your strategy accordingly. And in certain parts, costs are being driven back up, unfortunately. And that's where we come in to sort of go sit down with the market players and explain to them what the impact of that is. There's the inverse relationship between a cost and the amount of remittances that will come into your endpoint. Your endpoint might be a mobile money wallet. Your endpoint might be a bank account or a cash pickup network. But if you are going to increase costs, the remittances will decrease almost proportionately. And I'll leave it at that. Thanks, Leon.
Great. Thanks, Martin. Again, a hell of a lot there. I think one of the key things coming out from a lot of people is this real engagement and willingness and active talking going on between the private sector and regulators and policymakers, which I think is really encouraging and something to be built on. Now, just before I come to you, Jacopo, I'm going to have a short intervention from Aliou Injay from Q Money in the Gambia. He's the group head of that business. I know you've been very tied up on various IDFR things today, Aliou, so glad you could join us. If I just gave you the floor for a couple of minutes as we're running short on time, perhaps just to introduce your product and say why it is so relevant for the Gambia, that would be great. So great to see you. Thanks for making it, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Leon. As you're aware, I was just part of the physical event here in the Gambia. So we've just concluded. So I'm very pleased to join you over there as well. Yes, very quickly, in the Gambia, remittances, the cost of remittance is on average 12%, one of the highest across the world, I've been told. So with the intervention of IFAD, we are looking to see how we could enhance our platform to enable IMTOs to very quickly terminate remittances to mobile wallets in the Gambia. So in essence, that's really the focus of the intervention and the relationship that we've just two components. Basically, for the more established players, we will the internet might start playing up here. But for the more established players, we will have an API suite that will make it very easy for them to connect. But for the smaller players and the startups, what we intend to do is have a web portal where they can have facilities to use to be able to do their terminations. So again, another component obviously is how we can rapidly introduce digitalization of remittances and the digital ecosystem here in the Gambia. We are one of the last countries in West Africa to adopt mobile money. So it's still a very young market to try and convince people of the technology. Still love their cash. So trying to convince them to go digital is focusing on trust. If they trust us with their funds, we believe that we will have a lot of uptake. And I think just one quickly, Leon, the other factor is working with government and regulators. The Central Bank of the Gambia, who are our regulator, are very open to discussions of how we can collaborate to make sure that we have the right procedures and policies in place to enable the growth of the market. For example, government also recently stopped paying pensioners and teachers over the counter. So they all had to go and open a bank account or a digital wallet. So that really overnight transformed that sector. So we're now working with pensioners. They're receiving their pensions direct into their wallet. We're working with teachers who are in rural areas, receiving their salaries through their mobile wallet, to your wallet, while the rest goes to the bank. So you don't have to leave the village where you're teaching the children to come all the way to the next nearest town to receive your salary and lose a day of teaching time for the young children. So we're seeing use cases which is only through our interaction with IFAD we believe that we can reach that last mile, especially in rural Gambia. So we're very excited about this project. We're about to kick off, and we think having this facility will increase competition in the market to able to convince the big players in remittance to bring down their average cost of remittance. But I don't want to hold the line for too long, Leon. I'll stop here for now.
Right. Thanks so much, Aliou. That was really good in a short period of time. And yes, you're right. We did have difficulties a little bit with the internet, but I think one of the things that's really important that you've emphasized is the need to get domestic use of digital services up and in place, and that infrastructure before actually you really can leverage them for international remittances. So it's great to hear that. And again, the working together between government and the industry. So I'm really sorry we haven't been able to give you longer, but I'm really appreciative you were able to spare us the time that you have, and the line sort of held out for that length of time. So Jacopo, I'm going to come to you, and I dread taking any time off you, but I think from your perspective and having been involved in this area for a little while now, I'd really like to understand what are the three main messages you'd like to give to the audience here, whether it's other policymakers or the private sector. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Leon. It's very inspiring to listen to all the experiences that the private sector is giving today, and because I think it's also encouraging of the partnership that we are having with the IFAD, because at the end of the day, most of these experience and example are funded thanks to Prime Africa. So I think it's a nice opportunity to meet all of you here, and we hope in next year we can meet all physically in a big event, maybe hosted in Brussels. But this is beyond this wish. I think my main three consideration opinion in order to bring down the cost of remittances. I think that we need to provide the recipient and also the sender somehow a significant incentive in order to allow a behavioral shift from cash or informal to formal and digital. COVID gave us a significant lesson in terms of this. I think some incentives that could be additional financial product, that could be some financial support edge, some financial scheme that is supported by the regulator, could be a good opportunity to bring the customer and the recipient into the formal market and to adopt the digital. Then the work with the regulator and this, I would say the dialogue that the multi-stakeholder dialogue between regulators and the business industry is very crucial. At the end of the day, these two different worlds might not meet very often, so it's important that the prime Africa country there is a remittance national stakeholder network allowing this dialogue to go along, because at the end of the day, as the Gambia example show us, that if the regulator set the rule, everything can change immediately. Like now, basically, you are forced to open a bank account if you want to receive your salary or your pension. So it will be enough for a regulator to, let's say, introduce a sort of an obligation to have remittances deliver cash digital to allow this kind of issue. So it's important that the different perspective of the industry and the regulator are overall met and discussed all in a common place. Then there is the international dimension, which is quite important, where basically IFAD is doing a great work together with the World Bank and the IMF, which is somehow to hammer out some general consensus in terms of standard of accounting and reporting remittances, but also in terms of what we could call it like untractable issues, like the risking of money laundering, in order to have the guidelines on a proportionate risk taking by the bank operator to be clearly uploaded. So I'd say 3 levels of engagement: dialogue at the national level, big incentives that could be from a regulatory to a financial point of view to the customer, and then advocacy at the national level in order to facilitate a reform at the national level.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jacopo. That's probably a very good summary of this session in a way. We've now come to the end of that part of it. We're going to move on. But I think just my takeaway is, one, we never have enough time to discuss all of the issues and really learn. So as you say, I echo that hopefully this time next year we can get together in person and have a lot more one-on-one discussions on important areas. Secondly, clearly, dialogue between all the stakeholders is absolutely essential, and it is happening and happening more. I think more work still needed, but it is happening. And I think people are starting to learn how to talk to different types of stakeholders now. And then I think the whole area of digitalization, everybody's talked about it. As you said, Jacopo, I think COVID enhanced that and gave us a good lesson and learning point, and hopefully we can build on that in less personally threatening times for people. So we've got very little time left, and we're going to have interventions from the floor from first Mexico, then Morocco. I would encourage anybody who's got any questions to use the Q&A function. I know there's a couple there and they'll be answered afterwards. If you've got any thoughts, please do so. So I'm delighted to be able to ask Ambassador Alicia Buenrostro, I hope I pronounced that right, the DPR of Mexico. Great. So the floor is yours. Please go ahead. Look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much. Mexico gives special thanks to the governments of Guatemala, the Philippines, Luxembourg, Madagascar, Spain, and Sweden, and the International Fund for Agricultural Development for organizing this important event. We welcome the commemoration of the International Day of Family Remittances. This year, we're celebrating the resilience of remittances during the COVID-19 pandemic. Migrant workers are the unsung heroes of the pandemic, and they are the personification of what it means to be essential. Remittances are a key source of income for millions of families worldwide, particularly in low and middle income countries. They impact the lives of 1 billion people and 1 out of 7 individuals on Earth. Today, remittances are on the rise. Mexico, my country, is currently the 3rd largest receiver of remittances in the world. And remittances in my country did not drop during the pandemic. Rather, they grew 27.1% in 2021. This represents an accumulating streak of 8 consecutive years of growth since 2014. And in the Mexican experience, remittances are a main source for the empowerment of women and girls. In fact, with the remittances, they become financial managers and investors. So a very important point is that Mexico believes that when it comes to remittances, they are really the social driving force. They have a real social driving force for change for women and girls. In this context, it is time for states to ensure that these flows are maximized. We can do this by reducing remittances transfer costs and promoting greater financial inclusion, including through digital channels. Following the adoption of the Progress Declaration of the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration, Mexico reaffirms its commitment to substantially reduce remittance transfer costs and promote greater financial inclusion through remittances. We salute the efforts of IFAD and the United Nations Network on Migration and appreciate any initiatives that the UN country teams can take to the host governments to increase the competitiveness of the remittance market. This could be an asset for the UN. If we work together, we can ensure that migrants are not only rights holders, but agents of transformative sustainable development for countries of origin and destination. Nationally, and as a co-chair of the Friends of Migration in New York, Mexico will continue to support and recognize the essential role of family remittances and look forward to deeper collaboration across sectors in this regard. I thank you.
Ambassador, thank you very much indeed for some really pertinent remarks there. And now it's my pleasure to pass to the permanent representative for Morocco. So, sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, dear Ishaq. First of all, I would like to thank the countries organizing this meeting and also our thanks to the panelists. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the diaspora has been playing an increasingly important role in fostering socio-economic development, particularly through remittances. It actively contributes to the achievement of sustainable development goals, skills development initiatives, and transfer of technology. Despite the impact of the pandemic, migrants have continued to contribute to the development of their home continent. Contrary to predictions that remittances would decline by 20% because of the pandemic, remittance to Africa reached $78.5 billion in October 2020. Accounting for 11.7% of total remittances in the world. Despite slight decline compared to 2019, remittances have proved to be a more resilient and reliable source than foreign direct investment flows. Nonetheless, Africa has the present record of having the highest cost for sending remittances in the world. They average 8.5% of the total amount sent, which is nearly 3 times the Sustainable Development Goals target of 3%. The deductions made by international money transfer organizations can be as high as 15%, representing a shortfall of approximately 1.6 billion euro in annual earning for the African continent. Moreover, only 10% of these remittances are invested in projects or saving products in Africa. Over more than 2 decades, the Kingdom of Morocco has evolved into one of the world's leading immigration countries, with the global Moroccan diaspora estimated at around 5 million Moroccans. Moroccans from one of the target migrant communities in Europe, with more than 3 million people of Moroccan descent currently living in Western and Southern Europe. Also, growing number of Moroccan migrants have settled in Canada and the United States. Despite the evolved pandemic situation, remittances from Moroccan expatriates continue to grow. Among the monthly indicators reported by the Moroccan Office of Exchange indicated that in July 2021, such transfer amounted some 54 billion dirhams, which translates into $6 million compared to $0.41 billion in the same year. The remittances sent by the Moroccan community provide an important livelihood for the most disadvantaged and vulnerable families, as they are able to meet the growing demand of those families for basic goods in order to achieve and maintain better livelihood. True to the spirit and the letter of the Global Compact, the Kingdom of Morocco has undertaken several actions with regard to implementation of the Objective 20 of the GCM, which is promote faster, safer, and cheaper transfer of remittances and fostered financial inclusion of migrants, such as 1. Many measures are underway to digitalize services for opening new bank accounts, reduce remittances raised for Moroccan living abroad, and diversify remittances organizations within framework of the work of the specialized commission composed of the Ministry of Economy and the Bank, Al-Maghrib, and the groupment of professionals of the Moroccan banks. 2. Realization of initiatives allowing accompanying the Moroccan community's carriers of projects in Morocco with the support of international organizations. 3. Integration of migrants in national programs promotes their financial inclusions. To conclude, I would say that the Kingdom of Morocco has continued to make Africa an ongoing priority as far as its commitments are concerned. Morocco expressed its willingness to share information and data regarding the national immigration and asylum strategies launched by His Majesty King Mohammed VI, as well as the various measures we have taken in this regard. Moreover, the inauguration of the African Migration Observatory based in Rabat also demonstrates Africa's capacity to be front runner with regard to the new migration governance advocated by the Compact. The new migration governance promotes responsible management of the migration issues. It makes migration a lever for an inclusive recovery in the post-pandemic world. This recovery entitles the promotion of sustainable development centered on enhancing the resilience of the most vulnerable segments of the society, in particular migrants. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Permanent Representative for Morocco. That was a very nice way to end our session here. Just for a point of admin, you'll see in the chat there's an email address, remittances@ifad.org. Please send any further questions or thoughts there. And if they're addressed to a specific panelist or participant, then please mention that in your email. I'm going to stop there, Pedro, and hand back to you with about 2 seconds to go.
Thank you, and I will try to be very brief. But I wanted to thank our permanent representative and deputy permanent representative for their intervention. I'm glad to say that the National Media Stakeholder Network in Morocco has been created, and we are aiming at doing the first in presence also event there to reiterate the issues that were discussed today. And look more of a country approach with the realities in the ground. So, Mr. Representative, I think you will appreciate this. What a fantastic panel. It was a difficult start, and that was only our fault, some technical issues, but again, what a fantastic panel and finish. I think you will all agree with this. The concrete actions that were described and depicted in here are a very good follow-up to the International Migration Review Forum that happened a month ago now in New York. So I believe that this panel was able to touch upon several of these issues. And as we said before, not only talk the talk, but walk the walk in this particular case. So thank you so much for the panelists for sharing their experiences, their concrete action, what is doing, the difficulties, the challenges, but more importantly, the opportunities. It is indeed a time for action. For IFAD, we would like to thank everyone, but I would like to give my president the last words, his last messages for all the events that were held today. Unfortunately, he could not make it in person, so we did record his message, and I would like to leave you today with those, and then we will conclude this event.
Dear friends, today's International Day of Family Remittances is a tribute to the world's 200 million migrant workers and their abiding commitment to their family members back home. Despite the many recent crises, this year, $600 billion in remittances reached around 800 million people to over 130 low and middle income countries. Remittances have now resumed their annual growth rates, but this is not a cause for celebration. It only highlights the commitment of migrants in times of crisis, coupled with the dire economic realities their families face. These family resources are an essential lifeline. Nowhere is this more obvious than in rural areas of low and middle-income countries, where remittances count the most. In these places, remittances can make the difference between having food security, education, and economic activity, or being trapped in ever deeper poverty. The recent international review of the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration highlighted the positive impact of migrants adopting of digital transfers, financial inclusion practices, combined with more responsive measures from the private sector and government alike. However, the review also noted that much more needs to be done. And at IFAD, we are relentlessly working to promote effective solutions for remittance families. We are leading the private sector engagement to stimulate innovative and scalable business solutions that address rural market realities. By linking remittances to financial products such as savings, credits, and insurance, we expect to see the creation and growth of small businesses and an increase in the ability of poor rural people to adapt to climate risks and ultimately increase their prospects for a better and sustainable future. We also need to support governments and regulators more to unlock the social economic benefits of remittances and to better leverage these funds. Ladies and gentlemen, let us learn from the world's 1 billion remittance family members and gather our joint resources to help them maximize the impact of the $5.4 trillion in remittances due to be sent by 2030. By supporting remittance families with more options to use their funds, we are also supporting local communities, businesses, and job creation for women, youth, and future generations. At IFAD, we have seen that working with remittances families can transform lives in rural communities. We call upon you to join us in using remittances to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you so much.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today in this observance of the International Day of Family Remittances. With this message from our president, we would like to leave you. But just before, I'm happy to announce actually that the next observance of the International Day of Family Remittances that IFAD will host will be in the context of the Global Forum on Remittances Investment and Development, an in-person forum, a forum that was supposed to happen right before COVID or right at the beginning, and that had to be canceled. So I'm happy to say that next June 16, we will meet. So I don't want to spoil it too much, but we believe it's going to be in Africa as I originally planned, and hope to see many of you there. Again, thank you so much for the panelists, for the distinguished representatives, for the moderation, Leon, fantastic jobs, and I thank you all again. Sharon?